Hello my friends, welcome back. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today, I want to tell you the story of a man who achieved something that humans had dreamed about for thousands of years. For centuries, people looked up at the moon and wondered what it was like. They wrote stories about it, studied it through telescopes, and imagined traveling there one day. The moon seemed mysterious and unreachable. Most people believed that walking on the moon was impossible. But one man helped turn that impossible dream into reality. He became the first person to walk on the moon. His achievement changed history and inspired millions of people around the world. His name was Neil Armstrong. Today, he is remembered as one of the greatest explorers in human history. His famous footsteps on the moon became a symbol of human courage, curiosity, and determination. But before he became an astronaut, before he became famous, and before the world knew his name, he was simply a curious boy who loved airplanes and dreamed about flying. Before we begin, if you enjoy learning English through stories, please subscribe to Everstory English. Your support helps us create more stories for your English learning journey. Now, let's begin the incredible story of Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was born on August 5, 1930, in Ohio, United States. His parents were Stephen Armstrong and Viola Armstrong. As a child, Neil was quiet, thoughtful, and very curious about the world around him. He loved learning new things and enjoyed solving problems. From a very young age, he became fascinated by airplanes. Whenever he saw an aircraft flying across the sky, he would stop and watch it. He wondered how airplanes worked. He wondered what it felt like to sit in the cockpit and fly above the clouds. His interest in aviation grew stronger every year. When Neil was only 6 years old, his father took him on his first airplane ride. The experience made a powerful impression on him. After that flight, he became even more interested in aviation. He spent hours reading books and magazines about airplanes. He built model aircraft and learned everything he could about flying. While other children played games, Neil often spent his time studying aircraft designs and imagining himself as a pilot. He worked hard in school and developed a reputation as a serious student. Although he was intelligent, he was also humble and disciplined. He understood that achieving big dreams required hard work. As a teenager, Neil began taking flying lessons. Flying lessons were expensive, so he worked hard and saved money whenever possible. His dedication paid off. At the age of 16, before he even received his driver's license, Neil earned his student pilot license. This was an extraordinary achievement for someone so young. Many people would have been satisfied with such success. But Neil knew that this was only the beginning of his journey. After finishing high school, he attended Purdue University to study aeronautical engineering. He wanted to understand not only how to fly airplanes, but also how they were designed and built. His studies helped him develop a strong understanding of science, mathematics, and engineering. However, his education was interrupted when he joined the United States Navy. Neil became a naval aviator and trained to fly military aircraft. This was a challenging and demanding job. Pilots needed excellent skills, quick decision-making abilities, and great courage. During the Korean War, Neil flew combat missions. These missions were often dangerous. Pilots faced difficult weather conditions and the constant risk of enemy attacks. Despite these challenges, Neil performed his duties with professionalism and determination. His experiences taught him valuable lessons about responsibility, discipline, and staying calm under pressure. After completing his military service, Neil returned to finish his university studies. He graduated with a degree in aeronautical engineering and continued pursuing his passion for aviation. Soon, he became a test pilot. A test pilot's job was very different from that of an ordinary pilot. Test pilots flew experimental aircraft that were often still being developed. They helped engineers evaluate new technologies and improve aircraft performance. The work was exciting, but it was also extremely risky. Unexpected problems could occur at any moment. A small mistake could lead to a serious accident. Neil flew many different types of aircraft and gained a reputation as one of the most skilled pilots in the country. His colleagues admired his calm personality and his ability to solve problems under pressure. He rarely became emotional during difficult situations. Instead, he focused on finding solutions. These qualities would later prove essential during his space missions. During the 1960s, the world entered a new era known as the space race. The United States and the Soviet Union competed to achieve major milestones in space exploration. People around the world followed these developments with excitement. New rockets were being built. New spacecraft were being tested. Humanity was beginning to explore beyond Earth. Neil Armstrong wanted to be part of this historic adventure. When NASA began selecting astronauts, he applied. The selection process was extremely competitive. Many talented pilots and engineers applied for only a few positions. Candidates had to pass difficult physical examinations, technical evaluations, and psychological tests. Neil successfully completed the process and was selected as an astronaut. His dream was becoming reality. However, becoming an astronaut was only the beginning. Astronaut training was incredibly demanding. Neil spent years preparing for future missions. He studied spacecraft systems. He practiced emergency procedures. He trained underwater to simulate weightlessness. He learned how to survive in difficult environments. He participated in countless simulations designed to prepare astronauts for every possible situation. The training required patience, discipline, and determination. Every detail mattered. Every skill could become important during a mission. One mistake in space could have serious consequences. Neil understood this responsibility and worked tirelessly to prepare himself. In 1966, Neil Armstrong traveled into space for the first time aboard Gemini 8. The mission was an important step in NASA's efforts to prepare for future moon landings. During the mission, Neil and his fellow astronauts successfully completed a docking maneuver with another spacecraft. This was a major achievement. However, shortly afterward, a serious problem occurred. One of the spacecraft's thrusters malfunctioned. The spacecraft began spinning rapidly. The rotation became faster and faster. The situation was extremely dangerous. The astronauts risked losing consciousness. The mission could have ended in disaster, but Neil remained calm. Instead of panicking, he carefully analyzed the situation. Using his training and experience, he identified the problem and took corrective action. He successfully regained control of the spacecraft. His quick thinking and professionalism helped save both the mission and the crew. The incident demonstrated his extraordinary ability to remain calm during emergencies. NASA leaders were impressed by his performance. A few years later, Neil received the assignment that would change his life forever. He was selected to command Apollo 11. The mission had an ambitious goal. Humans would attempt to land on the moon for the first time in history. The entire world watched with anticipation. Scientists, engineers, and astronauts had spent years preparing for this moment. Millions of people followed every development. Many wondered whether the mission would succeed. Others worried about the dangers involved. Traveling to the moon was one of the most difficult challenges humanity had ever attempted. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Thousands of spectators gathered to watch the launch. Millions more watched on television. As the giant Saturn V rocket lifted into the sky, it carried the hopes and dreams of countless people around the world. The journey to the moon took several days. Inside the spacecraft, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins carefully monitored their systems and prepared for the historic landing. Finally, Apollo 11 reached lunar orbit. The time had come. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin entered the lunar module, known as Eagle. Michael Collins remained in orbit around the moon aboard the command module. Neil and Buzz began their descent toward the lunar surface. The landing was far from easy. Unexpected problems appeared during the final moments. Computer alarms sounded inside the spacecraft. The landing area contained large rocks and rough terrain. Fuel levels continued to decrease. Every second became critical. Neil realized that the planned landing site was unsafe. Taking manual control of the spacecraft, he carefully searched for a better location. Fuel was running dangerously low. Mission controllers on Earth watched nervously. Finally, Neil guided the lunar module safely onto the surface. The words heard around the world were simple but unforgettable. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. The mission had succeeded. Humanity had reached the moon. A short time later, Neil prepared to leave the lunar module. Millions of people watched on television as he slowly climbed down the ladder. Then, on July 20, 1969, Neil Armstrong stepped onto the lunar surface. At that moment, he became the first human being to walk on the moon. History was being made. The achievement represented centuries of human curiosity and decades of scientific progress. As he stepped onto the moon, Neil spoke words that would become famous throughout the world. That's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind. These words captured the significance of the moment. Although only one person had taken the step, the achievement belonged to all humanity. Neil and Buzz Aldrin spent several hours exploring the lunar surface. They collected rock and soil samples. They conducted scientific experiments. They took photographs and planted the American flag. They also left behind instruments that helped scientists learn more about the moon. Every activity was carefully planned. Every observation provided valuable information. After completing their work, the astronauts returned to the lunar module and prepared for the journey home. The return trip was successful. Apollo 11 safely returned to Earth on July 24, 1969. People around the world celebrated the mission. Parades were organized. Newspapers published headlines about the historic achievement. Neil Armstrong became one of the most famous people on Earth. Yet, despite his fame, he remained humble. He never viewed himself as a superstar. Instead, he often emphasized the contributions of the thousands of engineers, scientists, technicians, and support staff who made the mission possible. He believed that the moon landing was a team achievement. His humility earned him even greater respect. In the years that followed, Neil chose a relatively private life. He worked as a university professor and shared his knowledge with students. He continued supporting science, technology, and education. Although he rarely sought public attention, his influence remained enormous. Generations of engineers, pilots, astronauts, and dreamers were inspired by his example. Neil Armstrong passed away in 2012 at the age of 82, but his legacy continues to live on. His achievement reminds us of what humans can accomplish when they combine imagination, knowledge, courage, and teamwork. What can we learn from Neil Armstrong? First, great achievements often begin with curiosity. Neil's journey started with a young boy looking up at the sky and wondering what was possible. Second, preparation matters. Years of study, practice, and training helped him succeed when the most important moment arrived. Third, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage means continuing forward despite uncertainty and challenges. And finally, humility is important. Even after achieving one of the greatest accomplishments in history, Neil never forgot the people who helped him along the way. Today, as we learn English together, we can remember Neil's example. Learning English is a journey. Sometimes progress feels slow. Sometimes mistakes can be frustrating. But every lesson teaches us something new. Every new word expands our knowledge. Every practice session helps us improve. And every small step brings us closer to our goals. Just as Neil Armstrong reached the moon one step at a time, we can achieve our goals through patience, effort, and determination. Thank you for listening to this story today. I hope you enjoyed learning about Neil Armstrong. I hope his remarkable journey inspired you. And I hope this story helped you improve your English skills. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and join us for more inspiring stories on Everstory English. Until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep listening, and keep growing.